My friends, welcome back to the world of HeroQuest. Zargon has returned, plotting his evil, dastardly plan with his accursed quest book. Who will you choose? The shredded Jimbro Barbarian? The discount Gandalf the Grey? Or perhaps the elegant elf? Or, if you're into that sort of thing, the stout but stinky dwarf.
Yes, this is HeroQuest. Oh my gosh, so much new HeroQuest. This is not sponsored, but we did get all these boxes for free from Avalon Hill and Hasbro. We did play this on the Origins table, which handled the HeroQuest experience just great. For other games too, this Origins with its arena handled it no problem. With cup holders, a custom play surface, and even USB chargers, yep, USB chargers, this table is in it for the long haul. And guess what? It has a lifetime warranty! Lifetime! If you want to copy us and get an Origins table too, use our code SHELFSIDE at checkout for a free custom playmat worth $200. We're gonna cover the recent reprint of HeroQuest by Hasbro Pulse to get this 1989 formula analyzed, which was running about $300 on eBay before the reprint. Anyways, in this throwback, you grab your smashing high fantasy characters, plop in a dungeon, and defeat evil monsters as you push forward to complete your quest. This is all against the evil sorcerer Zargon, who controls the game behind their screen, dictating enemy movement and unveiling the dungeon as the adventurers move on. So this is where we want to disclose that this review is not going to be like other reviews on the channel. It's going to be done a little bit differently because this game is not your standard Zargon versus all in an asymmetrical 1v all scenario. It's more like Zargon is the game master or dungeon master to help facilitate the best high fantasy experience for everyone. Like they're even instructed to alter the dungeon layout if a scenario has to be restarted, so how do we even evaluate balance if you're making up your own maps? In fact, in the expansion rulebooks, it slides in the little paragraph, Zargon is the ultimate authority, as the rules might not cover everything when playing. However, this line is really gone from the base game rulebook. What the heck? As such, this review is going to be different from other campaign games we covered, because while I've played this game at least 14 times when combining old HeroQuest with the reprint and then the reprint expansions, everyone has their own way of Zargon-ing HeroQuest to make the mechanical scrutiny kind of a wash. Pre-college plays were done of the base game, then recently we did one official printout scenario for Rise of the Dread Moon, and 3 scenarios from Mage in the Mirror. We did not even come close to beating any of these campaigns, thoughts later on why that's the case, but we do have plenty of talk of whether this HeroQuest game system, with rules as written and with some simple house rules, might be for you in 2023. There's also a new app you can use if you want to play this game fully co-op.
Welcome to HeroQuest.
Yeah, but I mean, this thing is a little bit... How to play! Pick a hero, write down their information, load up into the start of a dungeon. You'll be given a quest goal to accomplish, then you explore through the dungeon, opening doors to do so. As heroes explore the map, the Zargon player will set up the scenario based off of the secret quest book. On a turn, you roll 2d6s for your movement. And you do one action, ranging from attacking monsters, searching for treasure, casting spells, and even looking for secret doors or traps. You're allowed to do your action before you move. Once the heroes have all done this in any order they like, it's Zargon's turn. He moves each of the monsters up to their movement, then attacks. So for combat, if you're attacking, you always want to hit a skull to do that much damage. If you're defending, you want to roll a white shield if you're a hero to block said skulls, and you want a black shield if you're a Zargon minion. If baddies drop to 0 health, they get removed. If good guys drop to 0 health, they permanently die, but allies can pick up their gear to carry on to new characters. If all good guys die, the good guys lose. Final thing, sometimes when you're exploring, Zargon will be prompted to read something from the secret quest booklet. This could be to suddenly spawn in more enemies, advance your main goal, or give you some cool treasure. It's all a mysterious thing in this dungeon here. Pros! HeroQuest miniatures are absolutely amazing. They really swung for the fences on the minis, with really sturdy molds on amazing detail. The heroes have so much to look at. This Elf for the Mirror expansion mini looks like Link from Hyrule. This expansion Spectre is glossy. More cool minis from the expansion. The furniture is just as well built, although it's missing out on a little bit of color because there's not as much printed cardboard on them. Furniture can be brightened up through little rats and skulls, and then this tomb even opens. Doors are also proper molds instead of just vertical cardboard that did not used to hold up well. Each mini from the heroes and the creatures and the wooden tables is quite hefty and slightly soft, meaning it's less susceptible to cracking. A+ marks for all minis here. Every single mini fits in one of the 2 inserts of each box, where the base inserts even seal up with plastic. This is just a way better system than just keeping everything like the original. God. Art is the same 90s style for the equipment, artifacts, and spells, but there's a facelift on the hero and monster cards that is definitely modern looking and bright. Dice are great quality with engraved symbols and just feel weightier to roll compared to the original wooden feeling ones. The Zargon screen is the same with awesome, just as practical as before in being rigid, showing everything for the Zargon side, and then on the flip side, intimidating all adventurers that dare face Zargon. This gets us into how HeroQuest is an extremely easy game to start and learn for a one versus all sort of game. You're never going to be intimidated or confused as Zargon because the basics are so clearly shown in your Zargon screen, and the basics are, when it's your turn, you just have your monsters, move them, and then roll dice to attack. Do it for all of your monsters. Zargon doesn't even have to roleplay if he doesn't want to. Just read the opening text from an elder named Mentor. This guy keeps calling you his friend for some reason and explains how Zargon was initially his apprentice who quit to get cozy with the powers of Dread. That fool! After a scuffle with Mentor, Zargon was weakened, but has been getting slowly stronger since then, and now threatens the realm. Yeah, that's pretty easy to just read to get everyone in the know-how on the high fantasy backstory. Also, there's even more parchment tests for each quest beginning. For the heroes, it's even easier to get into. Just grab a hero, there's a quick blurb that explains them on the back, then you just roll to move every turn, and then you can go and attack monsters if you want to attack them, or do one other very super simple action. Your Game Master Zargon will take care of the rest of the stuff in the game. This is an entry point lower than many party games. The setup for everything is also extremely fast for high fantasy. Just take out some minis, get some pen and paper, some starting items, and you're pretty much ready to play. This takes maybe 2 minutes at max with 4 to 5 people. You have the amazing benefit of Zargon making the map over time, so you can just keep everything in the insert until you actually need to use them. Gameplay pros time. So let's actually start with this board right here. This map template is very clever for its simplicity. It's a bunch of empty rooms, and then you put down doors and rock to actually create said map, which is actually a really streamlined way to make an infinite amount of dungeon setups. A single slab of rock doesn't really mean anything here, just the wall in that specific area. It's not surprising to find yourself on the other side of it at some point. With hidden traps and secret doors possibly in every single room or corridor, there could be something there even if your heroes don't initially see it. There's this feeling of sheer fantasy possibility in every scenario as you venture forward, from the variable start at the staircase or iron door from the expansion. And you have infinite replay value if you make your own quest too. You could photocopy this or go online for more printouts. This made the 5 or more scenarios that we played being much different dungeons to explore and plan around. Some dungeons are hunting and killing missions to find an evil orc warlord or a gargoyle to kill them and get money. Others are to rescue prisoners and then escort them to safety. All the while you're playing, the door placements are going to be slightly different, which matters a lot. And then there's fresh hidden traps to look out for, and even some furniture is interactable. We even peeked ahead and saw a scenario that really messes with your hero's equipment. The very dangerous forces you to use your team's 12 spells correctly, as they're all once per quest use. There's a nice range here, from putting monsters to sleep for debuffs, doing a huge ranged attack through an awesome genie, or buffing an ally to walk through walls. Yep, this was one of our wizard's favorite cheese moves, to walk through walls to scout ahead, and then walk backwards. In a recent game, our wizard buffed our dwarf with courage, giving him 2 more attack rolls, but only as long as our dwarf saw an enemy. So we made the greedy decision to keep opening doors to give him monsters to fight, so the buff could stay on. Seeing how most of your spells are on the wizard, who is physically weak, and another category is on the elf, who is more well-rounded, you have to position and talk a monster group on how to use these once per games. This is a little bit of the asymmetry here, where you got the barbarian who is physically stronger, and then the dwarf who is also well-rounded but can take out traps for free. The next pro is kind of a vague catch-all, which is HeroQuest does its world building in a very efficient way. First, you got the treasure and upgrade cards that are possible in every single room as loot, which are permanent upgrades. Treasure can give you strange potions or healing plants that can later be made into potions, or you eat them now. Or you get gold to later decide how to buy equipment. And the artifacts, yes, these feel like super strong game-changing rarities that would be hidden away in a dungeon. There's a wand of magic to cast 2 different spells on a single turn, or spell ring to cast a spell twice a scenario. or elven boots for only the elf to wear to run faster, or armor so light that it doesn't slow your movement down. For all these loots, the spells of the heroes, and the merchant dungeon, it can really make you feel like in a snap of a finger, you're just in a dungeon with your buddies and you need to work together to succeed. And even with HeroQuest's low complexity for the dungeon crawling genre, you still need to decide as a group how to search for things on the map, how to kill monsters, like which one you should kill first, which doors you should leave closed so they don't spawn more monsters behind them, and then how to decipher the minimal hints from Zargon's quest book. Also, come between the scenarios, the players need to collectively plan through the equipment deck buys, theory crafting on how they want to spec out their team. Maybe you see an expensive crossbow that now lets someone attack from afar, then the group pools their gold together. Or you can buy armor. Cons. Rules clarity is a bit lacking. When the game tells you can use something anytime, what does that exactly mean? Can you use it as soon as you get attacked? Like for potions like this, you can use it right before you die, as it says in the rulebook. But for something like a plant, how does that work? We just ruled this that you can use a plant on any time during your turn, it doesn't count as an action. The way resolving treasures is confusing too, because some treasures say, return the card to the bottom of the deck, whereas others say, do not return this card to the deck. This can make it sound like some treasures are removed from the game permanently. But no, everything gets reset between scenarios anyways. They could have just said, do not return this card to the deck until the end of this scenario. Potions and items are jank to keep track of too, because the space to write them down is super small. So often it's cramped for space if you start carrying multiple potions, which makes you want to keep the cards as reference. But then you can't because you have to return those back to the treasure deck after the quest to have the chance to draw them again. Either give a reference for potions or give more writing space. The armory really needed to be explained better because in the original, this armory was a giant sheet that said armory. Now it's a deck of cards that says equipment, so the rulebook should have just called this the equipment pile. And if you buy the expansions, which have their own artifacts and treasures, these cards are not marked by expansion. So once you combine them in, it's kind of rough to separate them if you need to. You can look at the publishing date on the bottom to separate the base from the expansions, but then you can't separate the expansions from each other. Okay, gameplay cons time. The first one is that the randomness is just not well handled by today's standards, and this totally makes sense because this HeroQuest is the exact same rule set and mechanics as this 1989 game. Rolling to move on a perpetual 2d6 being arranged from 2 to 12 is kind of infuriating at times. It really sucks to roll low and not do anything on your turn. So outside of combat, we house roll to move a flat 8. For combat rolls, you're just going to have fights where you'll miss again and again for your entire turn. Mind you, attacking is the way you'll take care of enemies the majority of the time, and there's practically no agency in combat, and only ever hit on the 50% skulls, and have zero reroll possibility. The heroes get less chances to roll the less heroes they have, so you pretty much have to play with at least 3 to 4 players, or have someone control multiple characters. We would suggest giving heroes a certain amount of rerolls per session based off of their mind points, although the frail wizard shouldn't have access to these rerolls. The treasure deck also being about 20 to 30% bad event cards is also a huge buzzkill for the heroes, where getting shot from a hidden arrow is annoying, but okay, whereas a wandering monster is ridiculously strong. This is when you're searching for treasure and then a monster jumps out from behind some furniture or comes out of the bathroom or something, sometimes 2 monsters, and get a free attack on you when it's not their turn. This really serves to destroy the pacing of a game off of a whack draw, and sometimes kill off already worn down heroes when they're just looking for treasure. Since the wandering monster is purely from a random draw, it has nothing to do with the scenario, it can really feel unfair and unthematic. Wandering monster is a big discouragement to not search for treasure, which isn't what you want in a dungeon crawler when loot is cool and pretty key to giving heroes potions or gold to buy weapons later. Needless to say, we just removed the wandering monster from the deck altogether, and that saves you more time to enjoy the actual scenario. The next con might not even be a con for those more free-flowing with the rules, but we have to bring it up because we're evaluating the game rules as written, which is the game is super clunky to play overall, and it's probably unbalanced. But again, what even is balanced if Zargon is changing the dungeon layout between scenarios if heroes fail? So the heroes are supposed to win and Zargon is supposed to lose. But anyways, rolling to move is super clunky as already addressed, where you don't want players straggling on movement and then wasting time having to catch up. Like sometimes you just have to go back to the staircase at the end of the scenario. then you have to just spam die rolls to get there. Yeah, you probably just want to teleport heroes like what a video game does for fast travel, the action of searching for traps, and then having to take another turn to search for secret doors slows down progress because they're very similar actions. Just combine them into one thing. Then the game forces the heroes to always go in the same rotation, starting with the barbarian, and we would just let heroes take turns in any order they want, so you can have a lot more teamwork and flexibilities of plays. The most common clunkiness to see is when heroes have enemies in some type of choke point. Really easy to do on a square map, and then just funnel in the enemies one by one so they get attacked one at a time. This conga line may be clever the first time you see it, may remind you of Fellowship of the Ring, then this is just an absolute cookie cutter grind when used again and again in a campaign. This is where Zargon should be house ruling some type of new thing to the dungeon to prevent this min-maxing of damage. An easy one is to just open up another door. Oh, speaking about Zargon, his turns are the driest of all, because all he does is move monsters equal to their flat move, then attack. That's it. You can't open doors or close them or spawn more units or work towards really any goal. You get dread spells on later scenarios, but that's the exception rather than the rule for Zargon's minions, which are just brainless minions that you use to attack probably the weakest hero character. Why not at least get some dread spells on the earlier scenarios? The looseness and jankness on how exactly to play HeroQuest really got hammered home when playing with this Mage of the Mirror expansion. First, you have an option to play a solo campaign, so just one elf versus 3 altered dungeons. The teamwork element getting removed from HeroQuest isn't a good idea, especially sucks that a handful of spells, old and the new ones like sleep, are just not that useful when you don't have allies to help you attack, move around the map, hold points, etc. Speaking of attacking, if you miss attack rolls, you're just gonna get bashed in so hard by the monsters, making the dungeon reveals even more punishing than usual. Zargon is just supposed to tweak these scenarios an insane amount, I guess? Also, you're definitely supposed to finish the campaigns in order, like finish the main game first, then use the same characters with their crazy gear to play the next box. But it does not make that clear in the Mage of the Mirror rulebook. It just says, for experienced players, which is an extremely vague thing. And if you just want to skip ahead to the expansions for the new stuff like the Knight character, they should give your starting characters more money or items so you can jump ahead and play things as you want to. Yes, I know this is HeroQuest, so you can make whatever, but we have to stress these weird balance things because of the app cons. This is a letdown because the app is pretty. It has good explanations, great sound effects, and narration.
You must first enter the catacombs that contain Felmarg's tomb. Tread carefully.
Also, Zargon's minions roll their R's?
Yourself, wizard. Roll your defend dice.
Okay, so for now, all the bad. First, this is not available on a computer, so you have to get it on a tablet or phone. And when passing around this phone for a group up to 4 people, that's pretty small. But also, this app is just not really a good idea for HeroQuest. This is really apparent when you're forced to replay scenarios when you fail, and then the dungeon is exactly the same, so that gets stale really fast. HeroQuest is about catering the experience for your playgroup, hence all the house rules we just keep talking about. And so this app is not going to let you play HeroQuest solo, or even 2-player very well. Delving deeper, the app requires you to move every single turn by finger, which requires so much touching the screen and not looking at the game. When you actually do want to look at the board and forget to do something on the app, there's no undo button. Like, what the actual heck? This is a game full of secret info. You should be able to undo stuff. I did not mean to trigger that trap because I misplayed. I guess I know there's a trap there now and the monsters are kind of out of position. There's no log history and the interactions were sometimes buggy regarding line of sight. So we found ourselves referencing the quest book to see what the heck we were actually supposed to do at times. What really drove me up the wall is that there's no way to restart a scenario if you lose. Like what? How hard is it to think of a button that restarts your quest in a quest-based game? You have to start another mission, then go back to the one you actually wanted to do. Sheesh, I had to look online to figure this out. Scoring! Now it's time for a recommended score, where we try to critically evaluate the aforementioned pros and cons of this game, with the caveat of whether or not this is even a good idea in the first place. So this Hasbro Pulse HeroQuest right here is going to get a 4 out of 10. It is below average. So we have a 30-plus-year-old game that doesn't really have much merit in 2023. That is rules as written. Rules not as written. If you're a good enough Zargon, well, you can pretty much make any scenario you want it, whatever. You could just make any scenario whatever you want it to be. I'm gonna be real with you, Gameplay Pros was pretty hard because so much of the turn-to-turn just feels obsolete. There's a bunch of monsters with really cool molds, but they pretty much just have different stats, which isn't engaging. There's asymmetry with heroes, but it's pretty simple and mostly giving different health and dividing those who have spells and then those who don't. There is an overarching story, but there's not really many story hooks or mysteries or even a sense of urgency, making dungeons feel more like isolated survivals or loot fests. The fact that current scenario flavor text and interactions are actually quite minimal at about 2 to 4 entries and the mechanics so threadbare as is, many Zargons will actually want to come up with little narrative blurbs as they play, especially since there's so little for Zargon to do on their turn. If we had to ask why each quest has such little reading, it'd be not to intimidate wet behind the ears 90s Zargons with upkeep. To be honest, we were initially looking into delving deeper into the campaign, trying to finish at least one of these books here, but then we were very quickly like, well, what's the point? Who is really going to benefit from such a comprehensive look into such simple mechanics over hours and hours of gameplay? So we didn't delve into the expansion mechanics of purchasable mechanics, the werewolf thing, or even the new dread spells. There's no branching story points like there is in modern campaign games, and the balance with so many artifacts and equipment will likely get whack as you accumulate more and more throughout the campaign, while the monsters mostly just roll more dice and have more health. The massive reprint hype comes from a chance to relive the game your parents might have thrown away as you got older. You can go back to being a kid, making up your own rules, and remember being mind blown by the furniture, dungeon layouts, and some versus all mechanics in the 90s. HeroQuest was one of the first to the dungeon crawler market with a really self-explanatory flashy cover like this, and now like this. And it's party-like accessibility that did wonders to cement the HeroQuest IP in nostalgia. But come on, at least suggest in the reprint for Zargons to make up flavor text, or give general suggestions on how to create the best dungeon experiences. It's like Hasbro is remembering that HeroQuest is best used as a nostalgic alternative to Dungeons & Dragons, so then it didn't want to update anything, but it didn't even include role-playing tips that could have easily been researched from the huge amount of creativity these dungeons have been inspiring since 1989. Has anyone actually finished all 14 scenarios of the base game with all the stock rules? Maybe some from a long time ago? But the more interesting find in our research was the big database of free HeroQuest assets, whether it be fan-made scenarios, print-to-play cards, or even the old quest books you can just play. With that, you can really see the charm that HeroQuest has on people's hearts, and there's replayability galore. With some further research, I came across the article that insists HeroQuest is a kid's game. Sure, that claim makes sense with the mechanics, but HeroQuest is listed as 14+, likely because there's blood mentioned somewhere I can't remember. This got me thinking, approaching HeroQuest like a family game may be the best approach. Great for parents to play as Zargon, and the kids can work together to tromp through the dungeon. Dad or mom Zargon can change up difficulty as the kids mess up, and then the kids can be raptured by all the awesome components and not have to worry about role-playing to just get into the fantasy experience. What's the point, you may ask? Why not just play a tabletop role-playing game? Well, I'm currently not a TTRPG enthusiast at the moment, but with my foray into a bunch of different systems, I've noticed that most of them require a good amount of investment. This could be to make characters, to understand the combat system, or to prepare a world, or to read up on one. This takes a certain skill set and time. Of course, the TTRPG experience is really vague by its nature, and you could play without any prep or without any pen or paper. But with the HeroQuest box, you have the immediate immersion of all this art, you have the grab and go heroes, and then the unraveling dungeon for all this visual looting fun. HeroQuest just doesn't have the same agency or world building as a weekly role-playing session, or the refined asymmetry with interlocking elements of Frosthaven, or even more thoughtful dice rolling of Descent 2nd Edition. Heck, its app could have been something more like Mansions of Madness 2nd Edition, but nah, they just decided to directly copy and paste the quest onto a rigid app. If you are really into the classic high fantasy theme, have a willingness to Calvin Ball the rules, and don't mind threadbare dice rolling, sure, go try HeroQuest. And you'll likely quickly see why the vibe of this game is held in such high regard. Buying it, on the other hand, is a rough ask at over $130, so we would only slightly recommend that in the niche situation where you already have a bunch of house rules lined up. Here are some worth trying out. HeroQuest was great for its time. Now it just vibes good. It's a very, very visual experience. With your own creativity, it could be a timeless experience for a close group of friends. Infinitely house rulable and expandable. At that point, you're so off of what we played here at Shelfside, but that loosey-goosey approach with all the rules is probably what the original creators of HeroQuest were going for anyways, and it's again here in this new version. My personal score for HeroQuest is going to be okay, let's make a distinction here. So playing close to rules as written with the app is like a 3 out of 10, but then playing with a human Zargon and then house ruling pretty liberally is more like a 5 to 6 range. And then when I average that all out, I think my nostalgia is just preventing me from giving it a 4 out of 10, so it's going to be a 5 out of 10 for me, just average. Components and art are absolutely awesome to me, and even by just opening the box, I get excited about this simple high fantasy world. Yeah, I'm a sucker for this type of theme, especially helps that I love Lord of the Rings. When the minis and doors and rocks are set up on the board, I actually feel like I'm in a dungeon in a way no other board game has done for me yet. This trickles down into the awesome vibe of playing, where I'm excited about what's around every corner in the dungeon. And when I get loot, getting a sick artifact is just like this dopamine hit, as it feels like I actually have received said item in my hands. Yeah, my imagination can just be going crazy while playing, and I just have these visuals of my friends and I in this dungeon all under 2 hours. However, I very quickly realized that it's just not worth my time at all to be playing this game rules as written, so then we started liberally house ruling it. Even with that though, my enjoyment slowly dips throughout scenarios since there's so much combat and it feels like it devolves into seeing how many skulls you can get on your turn. When the game gets bogged down in grind combat, I just want it to end. This just needs more going on for both sides. Even the cool pass through rock thing gets repetitive once you see it for the second scenario in a row. Playing with the app was my worst experience of HeroQuest ever, as I had to grind a solo scenario again and again, being fully victim to dice rolls, and basically looking completely at the screen to make it go as fast as possible. The best experience was still at the local park, running my fellow middle school friends through the first scenario, the trial. When I look back at that, I had a lot of fun adding flavor text to basically everything in the game. Every piece of furniture, every goblin, every door, the list goes on and on. This was something really cool I could show the heroes who are my basketball buddies who probably would never play D&D otherwise. It's here I want to point out that the first scenario is really well laid out, where the written interactables are well spaced apart, there's a good variety of monsters, and it ends with a bang of killing a big boss, then get a bunch of gold to spend. Oh, and then screw conga lines or funneling in enemies through doors. This is probably the main reason I got bored come mid-scenario. Let me know your ways of fixing this. I'm looking at the new artifacts, the equipment, the new monsters, the elf spells, or even crafting potions in the expansions. It's like, despite all this cool flair, there's a real ceiling on how much fun I can have in HeroQuest compared to other games. I've played so many games. I want a second edition so bad. Maybe then you can have a better upgrade system, some more door manipulation, more asymmetry. The list goes on and on and on what you could do here. For now, I'm gonna be keeping my 1989 version at hand for all the nostalgia. HeroQuest, old school stuff here. No doubt I'll be bringing this out and house ruling the heck out of it and playing as Zargon in maybe 5 or 10 years from now. That was HeroQuest. Again, this is not sponsored by Hasbro or anything. This is just our own thoughts. No affecting of scoring was happening. Also, let me know what you think of HeroQuest, maybe some cool house rules of yours, or just some better substitutes for this high fantasy genre. Anyways, thank you to our patrons for making videos like this possible. Thank you guys so much. If you want to see my original review of this old school HeroQuest that wasn't really the same structure as this video, you can check it out. This should be somewhere around here. And also, thank you to our Mad Lads of Cardboard. Yeah, thank you guys so much. This was a throwback to HeroQuest. HeroQuest. Ah, yeah, vibes. So much vibes in this game. So much vibes. Remember to like, comment, subscribe. If you like the vibes, I guess. Vibe game.